What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of the AST Call-In Show. I'm Noah Strackbine. Find us always on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk, or make sure that you go to Apple and you download AST All Steelers Talk anywhere you get your podcast. As always, find all my work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We still wait for Aaron Rodgers. It is officially day 62 since the Pittsburgh Steelers, 61, since the Pittsburgh Steelers hosted the 41-year-old quarterback at UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. He left without a deal. Well, we're 2 months later, and there is still no deal in place between the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers, but there are so many things to talk about, including the other quarterback options, Mason Rudolph, and if he's gaining enough speed to start believing in him, quarterback options outside the team, wide receiver options outside the team, belief in guys like Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, and if the Pittsburgh Steelers have answers or solutions or stars in the making elsewhere that could make this team a contender. We're diving into all of it and more. Shout out to everybody who called in. Shout out to our members. If you want to become a member, you can do so by clicking the link in the description below. With that said, I won't waste any more time. Let's dive into it.
Hey there, Noah. Steve again. How we doing today?
Field. Oh, I got something
I
for
wanted
you
to, ask you a couple questions here real quick.
Of course.
So the first one was, all right, so say, Rodgers doesn't sign, we get some other Joe Schmo, we somehow have Rudolph starting, and then end up, say by game 3, we got Will Howard playing. I don't know how that's going to happen, but let's just say It does. How good does Will Howard have to be this year to try to convince the Steelers to not draft a quarterback next year? This is all hypothetical.
Good question.
And if for some reason that did happen, what would they take with a first-round draft pick next year? Let's see here. The other question, you know what? I forgot it. So I'll just keep this short. Have a good day.
Appreciate you, Steven. Appreciate you. Let's start with my rant outside of your questions, and that is this. This is twice now that FedEx, my friend, FedEx has completely screwed me over in a package, and then it's impossible to get in touch with anybody or to talk to a real human to solve my issue. They have been trying to deliver a truck tire to Goodyear for, I don't know, a week and a half now, and continuously try to deliver it to the wrong address only for me to correct it and then them not actually fix it. So shout out to UPS. Shout out to our boy, Stephen Cornfield. I mean, I appreciate you. Let's talk Will Howard here, okay? What would he have to do? If we're adding one hypothetical, you got to add another. So if Will Howard impresses and the Pittsburgh Steelers go out there and they do the thing and Will is the guy and he becomes just the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers, chances are they've already went and added another wide receiver. I'm sorry, but if nobody has faith in Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph leading a group with DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson, then I don't think Will Howard's going to come in here and suddenly change that. I have a hard time believing that one. So let's say that they, in this hypothetical, went out and they got another wide receiver. Now, if they don't go get another wide receiver becomes the instant top of the list for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have their quarterback of the future. You go out and you get weapons around him. This is what you do, and if it's not a wide receiver, it's a offensive lineman, because you want to replace Isaac Seumalo or you want to potentially replace Broderick Jones if he doesn't turn out to be the guy. All those questions. The second option there, the only defensive option I could see is corner, to go out and get a corner that plays alongside Joey Porter Jr. for the next 10 years, and that solves your secondary for probably the long term. Obviously, if Minka doesn't play super well this season, or if Deshaun Elliott doesn't play super well this season, or if Patrick Queen doesn't play super well this season, the Steelers have other options and they could go other directions. Not that an inside linebacker is going to top their list in the first round, but I could see corner being on there, maybe safety, depending on it. Wide receiver and offensive line are my first two. If the Steelers go out and decide Will Howard's the future, what does he have to do to prove that he's got to play flawless. There has to be no questions about Will Howard being that guy. He's got to have a CJ Stroud, Brock Purdy, Jaden Daniels type rookie season to say, I'm the dude, no questions asked. If you go into the first round of the playoffs and you get smoked by Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or CJ Stroud or anybody else out there, there are too many questions. You might not be the guy. You might just be a guy. And the Steelers don't want a guy. They want the guy. So it is a steep mountain to climb for Will Howard to prove this season that he is the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and for them not to draft a quarterback next year. I'm talking steep, because next year's quarterback class looks good ahead of time. If that changes, obviously everything around it changes. But if we're judging from what we know right now, it's going to be impressive. The Steelers are going to be very interested in it. They are very interested in it. So for Will Howard to shut down that thought, he would have to eliminate literally all nerves from the Pittsburgh Steelers. He would have to play as close to flawless and look like that dude. He'd have to be on ESPN every day being talked about by the talking heads out there about how he is the future of the NFL. That's how good Will Howard. It can't just be like, he throws for 20 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. It can't be Steelers go 9-8 with Will Howard and he looks really impressive. No, Will Howard's got to be a guy that looks like the future of this team without questions. And again, steep mountain to climb. It could mean that they settle next offseason and say, we're going to sit where we are and draft a quarterback where we are, and we'll have those two compete. But I think that is step one before it goes all the way to drafting some other position instead of quarterback. To do that, Will Howard's going to have to be pretty perfect in 2025.
Hey, Noah, Chad, California. Hey, talking about the Olave stuff, I think last year his brother came out and said that the Saints were in a good, hurting or endangering Olave. I think he was on his 4th concussion, and that Carr was probably not the quarterback. With Carr retiring and now we got a rookie, do you think there'll be that same type of objection to the Saints and the offense, and that Olave would want to trade or hold out, or the best value for Olave would be now, maybe a second? Or does his value go down if the Saints wait too long? Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Good question. The Saints' value on Chris Olave will probably stay pretty consistent. I don't see him lessening that value. Now, the way he's going to get out of New Orleans is him complaining that he's in New Orleans. That's how it's going to be. And whether it's public or private, if he goes to the GM and the coaching staff and just says, hey, look, guys, Tyler's obviously not the answer. We don't have a quarterback situation here. We're in the beginning of a rebuild. I'd like to go compete somewhere and be on a roster that I think could compete somewhere. And maybe Pittsburgh's that team that calls. The Steelers called in January. They called. I don't know how serious they were when they did, or if they've called again. I know that Albert Breer said that it happened earlier this offseason. If that's the case, then they clearly have interest, and they would have interest the moment that he became actually available. If he's gonna become actually available, it's got to be on him. It's got to be on Chris going to New Orleans during training camp and saying, look, we just don't look that good and we should look better, and I want to be on a better team. That's the way he gets out of it, because the Saints are going to look at it and say, we have a quarterback, hopefully of the future, in Tyler Shuck, which means that we want weapons around our young quarterback. And if our young quarterback isn't here this year, maybe he's here next year, and we want weapons around our young quarterback. Chris Olave is there cheap for the next 2 years, makes it very difficult for them to say we're going to move on from him just to move on, unless the Steelers offer great compensation, which I would imagine is a 2nd-round pick, and Chris says, I want out of here. I think that's the only way that changes. I do think the environment and the atmosphere, and the Saints are going to find out very quickly that they are not a contender this season. They probably already know that, but they're going to find that out very quickly in 2025. And I would say by the end of August, that team is already being talked about trading big names. Chris Olave will be one of them. How serious that gets, again, is on Chris and his urge to get out of there. If that urge is strong enough, I think they do move him. And I think the Steelers would be the leading candidate for that acquisition, excuse me. And in terms of value, it'll stay a second round pick. I just don't see him he's cheap for 2 years. He's phenomenal, dealing with a couple of injuries last year, but you could, look past that in 1 out of 3 years and say this guy's still got a ton of upside. He's only 24 years old. I think that teams are going to have to give up top dollar for Chris Olave. He's worth top dollar, and the Steelers would most likely lead that list. It wouldn't change, but I would guess August is when that gets realistic.
What is up, Noah Strackbine? This is Bird Fan calling you from Virginia. And I just wanted to say, great show. Appreciate everything you do. Welcome to Jacob again, week 2. And
Yes,
I'm sorry, Jacob, but I'm not digging the relaxed, laid back, situation. I want to see you sitting up straight and tall and delivering some hard hitting Steelers news. Just kidding you.
I'll spread the word.
I like the idea of Rodgers coming on, but and it's exciting because he's a 4-time MVP. I'm sure the guy still has something. I'm still hoping for Mason, man. I want to see Mason have a breakout year, and if it's not Mason, then Will Howard. It doesn't matter to me. We've got 3 quarterbacks. I don't care which one of them, dominates. I just want one to dominate. So, hope it's a good one in the Berg. It's raining here.
Peace. I'll spread the message to Jake. That's hilarious. Look, everybody wants just anybody to figure it out. I'll say that the Steelers' options are pretty rough, but they could be worse. They really could. Just look at it. We just talked about the Saints. You could have Tyler Shuck and Spencer Rattler as your 1 and 2. You could be in Cleveland right now saying Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett is our leading candidates to start in 2025. That's atrocious. That's way worse than Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph. I don't care what anybody says. I think the Steelers are in a bad spot, but I don't know how much better they were going to get. I think Russell Wilson doesn't really increase the bar that much. If you're the Steelers, even if he does end up being better than Aaron Rodgers, I look at it and say, you're looking at Justin Fields, and maybe he gets you better. Maybe Sam Darnold turns into that guy for year 2. If that's how you ended things, maybe Derek Carr was a name to watch. I don't know. They're all out there. I think the Steelers are a team that need to be patient at quarterback. They've set themselves up with not the best, but definitely not the worst situation as they bridge themselves from one year to the next. Again, in a bad quarterback class year, where free agent options I want to say limited. Because the NFL has a quarterback problem as it is. The talent level at the position is not that great to begin with. I don't necessarily sit here and think the NFL is loaded with guys and there's too many of them, and everybody Joe Milton was the name this offseason. Joe Milton might never start a game in the NFL. That's where the NFL is. And I think the Steelers to have potentially Aaron Rodgers and definitely Mason Rudolph, it's not the worst. It's not great. It's not going to win you a Super Bowl, but it's not the worst. And it keeps this team competitive. I know everybody hates that. It's an excuse. I understand it. But it keeps the team competitive in a way where if something crazy were to happen, if CJ Stroud on a really bad Houston Texans team takes down Patrick Mahomes in the first round, and somehow Josh Allen finds himself out too, and the Steelers only have to beat Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens to make it to the Super Bowl. If that happens, that you've set yourself up with an opportunity. The best opportunity? No, but an opportunity, and I think that's important. And where we stand today, again, it could be so much worse than it is. And the Steelers they've navigated this. I don't want to say in a way I think is great, but I'm not totally upset with their game plan. I'm really not. I see the upside in it for sure.
Hey, no, it's Jason again. Gave myself a chance to call back. I'm so proud of myself for not using up the time in the last one, not using up the whole message. Fired up.
I think we got an old one. I think we
Hey,
got an
no,
old
it's
one.
Jason.
There it is.
Gonna try and keep the crazy out of it this time. Can't promise I won't ramble. I know some people hate that, but I'm gonna try and get right to it. So here's my thoughts. I'm old school. I go back to listening to the draft when it was on the radio. There were 9,000 rounds. It wasn't on TV, right? So it goes back. But you draft people, you'd let them sit, you'd let them develop, you'd let them mature, body-wise, mind-wise, game-wise.
Yeah.
So my thought is we bring in Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
He does well. We have a pretty tough schedule. He plays well. We do 10-7, maybe even 11-6.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
We draft another guy, hopefully not Eller from Penn State. We're Penn State people in this house, but that's tough. That's tough. I'd rather roll with Will Howard. But say we bring him in, so then we have Will Howard going into his second year, another rookie, and Aaron wants to run it back one more year.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on bringing him back one more time? Let those two guys sit. Then Howard has 2 years under his belt. The rookie has a year under his belt. Then you have a real quarterback competition, and you see how it goes. Thanks, Noah. Love the show. Appreciate everything you do. Jacob, welcome. Talk at you, brother. See ya.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm excited for the next message as well. It all depends on Aaron Rodgers, and if Aaron Rodgers is going to turn out to be good. That's what it is. Is if Aaron Rodgers gets the Steelers to be a Super Bowl contending team, yeah, of course you bring him back. But if Aaron Rodgers loses in the first round of the playoffs and doesn't look great and isn't the reason that you got there in the first place, and is clearly not your without question best option for 2025 or 2026, you move on. That's what you do. It's better to. It's great to have guys learn. It is. And you're not going to win a Super Bowl with a rookie quarterback. You're really not. But Aaron's got to be the guy that without question is the best answer in 2026, can give you a real shot to win a Super Bowl. If he's anything less than that, you're just simply wasting time to see if the next guy is the right guy. And I'm all about young guys sitting and learning. I think it's important. And I think Aaron's a fantastic mentor. But again, the Steelers are a bit backed against the wall where they are right now, and they don't really have the time to waste to say we need to develop our rookie quarterback. We need that to because at that point maybe he comes in and he's already a contender, but maybe he comes in and he's got to struggle a little bit before he's good. Maybe that's the case, and you can't waste those years of TJ Watt. You can't waste the final run of Cam Hayward. You can't waste, the youth of Caleb Johnson and the offensive line and what you have left of DK Metcalf and Pat Freiermuth and, all of these names. You can't do that. You have a team that's young, that's ready, and you have to have the best option going into 26. And 26 right now may be Aaron Rodgers, but he's got to look like the reason that you're a contender in 2025, I'm not going to bet on it, but you can't sit here and say, no, that's not going to happen. It's guaranteed it's not going to happen. You never know. If he looks that good, okay, then he's your guy in 26. And I agree with you. You let him sit and you say, you're going to be the next Jordan Love or Dak Prescott or whoever. You're going to be the guy that comes in afterwards after a year of learning from a Hall of Fame veteran, and then you'll go on and see if you could do the same things and replicate it. And I think that's important. So I have to wait and see what Aaron brings and what the situation looks like. And if Aaron looks like the reason the Steelers are it in 25, I don't hate the idea of bringing him back in 26, but that's a big question. And the only one that answers your question is how good Aaron Rodgers looks in 25.
Hi, Noah.
Hey, no, it's Jason again.
Yes, sir.
Gave myself a chance to call back. I'm so proud of myself for not using up the time in the last one, not using up the whole message. Fired up. Pretty happy about it. Eddie, that was for you. So I figured I'd call back. Another question,
shout out, Eddie,
not completely Steelers, but I'll switch it to the Steelers at the end. The NIL, brother, how is that helping or hurting NFL today and these rookies coming in. I saw it could have been fake news, but I saw Ewers was going to make $8 million if he had stayed in school and went into the portal. Instead, he went pro, $2 million contract, 130 guaranteed, somewhere around there. So switching to the Steelers, how much more important is it that the Steelers brass draft players that are of good character, good heart? You still need epic talent.
Yeah.
But how much more important is it that they focus on drafting guys that want to play football, that are pure football guys? I mean, that's always what everybody says, but with all the nonsense we've had going on in the past how many years, is the game getting away from Tomlin a little bit there? Because he still wants to draft these guys with all this talent, like a Pickens.
Yeah.
That's just not going to work out. And then we're always straddled with having to get rid of them, having to bring somebody else in, always looking for another guy. Anyway, your thoughts on that? Probably a much longer conversation, the whole NIL portal thing, than we have time for, so you can just spin it to the Steelers if you want. Again, appreciate you. And Birds fan, thanks for checking in on me a couple weeks ago. Heard it. Love it. Talk to y'all later. See ya.
Shout out, my man. The NIL conversation is a pretty deep one. It's definitely a deep conversation, but I think the landscape of it is simple still. You know, it's very complicated and it needs to be adjusted and there needs to be corrections. And I think they have to do trial and error a little bit more than what they're doing. I think the NCAA is a business, an entity that seems to literally just say, this is it, we're good, and just let it coast no matter what they do. They make very few changes. It's almost as if they're operating on autopilot because they understand how much money they're making, you know, and I get it, but that's why the NCAA is like the most disliked sports organization there is in the United States. Like, that's why, is because they are awful when it comes to adjusting and fixing and doing the best things possible. They're just very comfortable with, you have to do this to get pro. We're cool with that. We're the middleman. Awesome. I think spring leagues eventually force the hand a little bit there, but that's a long ways down the road. NIL money, I think, has a simple basis outside of how the NCAA is screwing it up. And that is, you deserve to be paid. These guys deserve to make a boatload of money. And $8 million is a ton of money. But if $8 million is like the highest, one of the biggest names in college football, you know, Nico, Tennessee guy who went to UCLA, who I still will never try to pronounce that last name. I think it's $2 million. And if he's top tier quarterback and you're only making $2 million, it evens out because top tier quarterback in the NFL is making 60. And, you know, it's comparably different. Guys deserve to get paid without question. You could still find the good character guys. And I think the Steelers are learning their lesson and changing to that. Their recent draft class is a spinning example image of what they are looking for in the NIL landscape of still good people, still hardworking individuals. And that is very simple. Derek Harmon's first on NIL check, you want to know what he did? He bought his mom an accessible van because she couldn't walk. That's incredible. But that guy was getting paid NIL money. He left Michigan State to go to Oregon. You think that was just for pennies? No, it was for a lot of money. We both know that. Will Howard ended up at Ohio State. That was not cheap. I guarantee you that was not cheap. But still a guy that wanted to come in here, bust his butt, and seems to be, by all accounts so far, a leader that the Steelers have been looking for a long time. Caleb Johnson was an absolute animal at Iowa, but this dude is, you know, you're seeing videos of him getting baptized and smiling and hugging all of his teammates. And like, he just seems like an all around great dude. And that's what you're looking for. You know, you're looking for the Zach Frazier. You were looking for the Troy Fautanu, the Peyton Wilson. Like, you're looking for the guys that bring really good character to the NFL still. That doesn't change. And if you could stick the course of looking for guys with great character, it doesn't matter what the NIL is and how they're adjusting or not adjusting it and how much money these guys are getting paid. If you're getting paid $2 million in college and you're going to get, or even $8 million, if you're going to get paid $8 million in college and then you come to the NFL, if you're making $8 million in college and you're a snob about it, okay, that's clear as day. If you're making $8 million and you're still very hardworking, great leader, you're the type of dude who's going to come in here and he's not worried about the money. He's worried about winning Super Bowls. You have the right guy. And I think that's where the Steelers stand is they're learning from this. George Pickens was a big one. He was a big wake-up call for the Steelers of just like, in 3 years, you did so much to force yourself out after we just did this with Chase Claypool, after we just did this with Deontay Johnson, after we just did this with Kenny Pickett. Like, that was it. The red flags were massive coming into the league. He still got drafted, and I think the Steelers took it as a warning, like a big warning to just say we have to adjust these things. And you could look at their last 2 draft classes and really most of the one before that. Calvin Austin's awesome, but that might be it. And I'm not remembering that whole class right now, so don't take that verbatim. But you could look at their last 2 draft classes and feel pretty good about how they are identifying character and who they're looking for in the NFL draft.
Hi, Noah. First, I want to thank you for being our distraction. We're going through a lot right now. My mother-in-law fell and broke her hip, and she's no longer able to walk or be cared for at home. So we're going through the process of moving her into a nursing home and everything that goes with that. And I want to thank you for our hour of distraction when we get home to forget about everything and tune in to you and our Steelers. And isn't that what football's all about in the first place, is putting all your problems away and watching for touchdowns and 3 and outs? I had texted a question on the show a couple weeks ago, and I don't think it was taken right, but I have a question.
Okay.
Can a college player, let's say Archie Manning, could he say, I'm going to defer from being in the draft and I am going to be a free agent and sign with any team that he wants or that any player would want? Or are they ineligible if they defer from the draft? And if they can do that, why don't more? And if they can't do that, why aren't they allowed? Hope all is
Great
well
question.
with you, and go Steelers. And Aaron Rodgers, please sign already.
Please sign, Aaron. Come on. First off, thoughts and prayers to you guys. Obviously, I hope your mother-in-law is doing okay and hanging in there, and I hope you guys are hanging in there. And I'm very grateful to be that distraction, and that's honestly why I do this. Is because I love all you guys, and it's a big, that's awesome, and I'm grateful that it's what I do actually, does help a little bit. So I hope you guys are good. Anything I can do to help, I'm always trying to. So just let me know. When it comes to your question about the player, so it's complicated, okay? You have to declare for the NFL draft if you are in college. What you can do is leave college, defer for like the UFL, sign with the UFL or get drafted into the UFL. And from there, it opens up the door to be signed into the NFL without actually having to be drafted. I believe it's only been done, I think, once or twice. But that is an option. But you do have to play a year of UFL ball, at least. Like you have to be removed from high school, I think 3 years. You have to have 3 years of experience elsewhere before you go to the NFL. So you'd have to spend at least a year, depending on when you went to the spring league, to the UFL or to the CFL or wherever, to do that. I think at that point you can bypass it. The reason these guys don't is because, being drafted comes with a ton of money, which is awesome. It comes with a huge moment that these guys are looking for. And if you're a guy at the top of the draft, if you are a Cam Ward or an Arch Manning or whoever, if you're that good and you say, I don't want to go to Cleveland, like, I'm not going to sign this contract, you either have leverage or you don't. And it kind of just depends on the team. I mean, Eli Manning threatened everybody. Yeah, he wasn't going anywhere. There have been John Elway did the same thing where it's like, I'm not going to Indianapolis. It's not happening. These things happen, and guys, some of them use their leverage in baseball to get them there. Some of them just say, I'm not doing it. You have to have some sort of leverage. I think the UFL is some of that, but to go spend a year making $60,000 instead of, 11 million, 12 million, 15 million, whatever you're going to make in that first year, it's significantly different, and I think that guys take that into account. It's a situation that is very rare and eventually maybe becomes more as these spring leagues become more dependent and offer bigger deals and that kind of stuff. But it's the same thing with the NBA. Like LaMelo Ball went and played overseas instead of going to college and then went to the NBA draft. And a lot of guys in the NFL would probably not be open to that, but for those select few who are, they could. Why they can't do that, why they try very hard, why the NFL tries very hard to have that control is very simple. Like they want the parity. The NFL loves parity. That's why the NBA draft is so crazy and everybody hates it every year, is because the powerhouses remain the powerhouses and the Dallas Mavericks get the first pick when the Washington Wizards and the Utah Jazz should have clearly had the first pick. And in the NFL, they're looking for Cam Ward to come into Tennessee and change the entire culture and make them a contender. They're looking for the Jaden Daniels to show up in Washington and take them to an NFC championship game. That's what they want. And you're going to get that through a draft. And that's why they do it. That's why they try to force their hand there. Again, some guys have in the past made it known they're not going here or there, and it works. Sometimes it hasn't worked. Caleb Williams is a big one last year. It was all this stuff's coming out about how he didn't want to be in Chicago. Well, he still ended up in Chicago. It goes back and forth. There are alternatives. Those alternatives are risky and don't come with much reward. And that's it. Like, you're not going to sign a massive deal in the NFL straight out of the UFL. It's just not going to happen. So I think right now there's not a risk reward option that's good enough for these players, and that's why they don't do it. But I believe the option is open to them. I'm not 100% on that, but I think it is open to them.
Hey, Nick, how's it going? Yeah, Nick, Noah, Nick. Oh my gosh, it's been a week, and it's only Tuesday.
It's all right.
So I just
pretty
wanted
much
to
the same guy.
explain, like, why I say giving a rookie a shot. Like, I don't mean to harp on it. I just think I'm tired of seeing the same old happening. But I guess my question this week is not about a quarterback. It's actually about Caleb Johnson. What do you think he's going to end the season with? And do you think he's going to be a franchise running back for us? I saw
Yes.
he, what's the word? He mirrors his game after, like, Derrick Henry or
Dalvin Cook.
who was the other guy? It was Derrick Henry and someone else. But do you think we found, like, our guy running back of the future? And do you think we would keep him long term? Honestly, I'm just asking because I high-key want to get a Caleb Johnson jersey, and I haven't even seen him take a snap yet. All right, talk to you later. Bye.
Maddie, great questions. Go get that Caleb Johnson jersey. I think he's going to be a stud. I'm super high on Caleb Johnson. He is Derrick Henry because he's got the vision of Derrick Henry, and that is huge. Derrick Henry is a guy that'll hit you, and he's big and scary, but Derrick Henry has incredible vision. Some of the best vision I've ever seen. And Caleb Johnson is so close to that in my eyes. Like, he's so good as a rookie coming in. I think he's going to be a stud. I think he is the franchise. I hope they sign Jalen Moore in the summer to an extension so that they have the both of them for the next 3 years. That would be huge to have a 1-2 punch that you could build off of each other for the next couple of seasons. That's what you're looking for. That's incredible. I would love to see that happen if I was the Pittsburgh Steelers early in front of training camp. Again, like, I'm a big Caleb Johnson guy. I can't spread that enough. We have to see him in games, but I'm feeling pretty confident that he's got the tools. His game speed is really fast. His vision is incredible. He's super physical and agile. He's doing a lot in a zone running scheme in college that Arthur Smith wants to do in Pittsburgh, and that is huge. I got, if I'm going to bet on any of these rookies, he's probably number 2 on my list behind Derek Harmon. That would be my guess. When it comes to Will Howard and the rookie, I get it. Everybody is tired of waiting for Aaron Rodgers and tired of this whole saga and just looking for some sort of answer. I hear that. But 2 things. One, he's a 6th round pick. If you go out there and you put him out there and he goes 0-4, 0-5, and you realize very quickly, not the guy, struggles are real, isn't that? Your season's over on a guy that you didn't invest very highly on. So in other words, you didn't have the faith of this is a starting quarterback when you drafted him. You had faith maybe in other places, and you essentially just ruined a season for everybody. I don't think the Steelers are into that. And 2 is his draft stock. Like, that's like the easiest answer to give here, is that nobody in the 6th round gets drafted to save a franchise ever. That just never happens. Does it happen? Does it turn out where they do? Yeah, definitely. But nobody gets drafted in the 6th round with the Steelers or any other franchise looking at it going, that guy's going to save our franchise. That guy's going to be the next big thing here in Pittsburgh or LA or wherever. That just doesn't happen. So it comes down to draft stock. The Steelers looked at Will Howard as a 6th round draft stock, and that is the second least draft stock you could have in the NFL outside of an undrafted free agent. If he was a 2nd or a 3rd round pick, argument to be made, because the Steelers clearly see some like really serious potential and upside and skill in this guy. And they probably still see that in the 6th round, but there's a significant gap. The 3rd round for the Steelers right now is Caleb Johnson, who we're talking about as a franchise running back. If Caleb Johnson was drafted in the 6th round, I don't think anybody be sitting here going, Jalen Moore and take a back seat to him, pal. No chance. It's all about draft stock. I understand people are getting impatient about the situation. I think it's, you could blame it all on Aaron Rodgers. If he was here, there'd be no story to have. There'd be no questions left to answer. There'd be nothing left to talk about. It would just be Aaron Rodgers is here. The situation is finally calmed. Boom. We're good. Steelers are good. But that's not the case. And because of that, the angst remains. And I hear you. I get it. But the draft stock is not high enough for the Steelers to say this dude is worth taking that risk of utter failure on. Again, if your draft stock's higher, it's there. But a 6th round pick, if who else was there? They don't even have, here's a good one. Like, you're not going to start Carson Bruner, 7th round pick, over Patrick Queen or Peyton Wilson and say, well, he's a rookie. You want to see what we have in him. You weren't going to draft Connor Hayward and start him over Pat Freiermuth and say, oh, well, he's a rookie. We want to see what it's just about draft stock and where it lies and where it goes. You could make the argument to replace Larry Ogunjobi with Derek Harmon because the draft stock is there. The immediate upside's there. I just don't think it's there with Will Howard. And again, I could be proven wrong, but that's something that they'll have to see. You can't go into it with that expectation because nobody in Pittsburgh is. Nobody is. All right, y'all. With that said, I'm heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of the All Steelers Talk call-in show. I'm Noah Strackpine. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Please, please, please go give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and hit the download button. You got to hit the download button to all the podcasts as well as hitting the 5-star review. That gets us closer to that top 10 at the end of the year. I can't thank you guys enough. Trying to do some giveaways there, so make sure that you do it. Take a screenshot when you do, so on and so forth. And if you want to become a member, you could do so by clicking the link in the description below. With that said, enjoy a rainy but a beautiful one in the Berg. I'll be back later for the flagship show. Peace.